On Top Gear, which hatch is hottest? How to save a bundle on your next new car? And what I did on a bank holiday weekend.
A new Golf has come among us, and that means, of course, there's a new Golf GTI, and that's big news. You want a sports car? You buy a GTI. You want a practical shopping car? You buy a GTI. You want something robust? You buy a GTI. And if you want something with a bit of flair, guess what? I know millionaires who have GTIs. I know kids with Saturday jobs who have GTIs. The GTI crosses dynamic boundaries, it crosses social boundaries. It's a working class hero, and it's an aristocratic blue blood. It even has blue lights. So, the new one then. Any good, or has Volkswagen been too busy taking over the world to care about the core product? There's no doubt it still has the best name in the business, but is it still the best hot hatch? There was a time, of course, when it only had to beat the XR3. But not anymore. This is the Fiat Bravo HGT. 2 litres, 5 cylinders, 20 valves and 147 horsepower. The Golf wades into battle with 1.8 litres, 20 valves, 4 cylinders, a turbo and 150 horsepower. And then there's the incredible Peugeot 306 GTI. Only has 16 valves and there's no turbo, but it is the lightest car here. And its 2-litre engine develops 167 brake horsepower. So it's also the most powerful. Couple that to the fact the Peugeot has a 6-speed gearbox and you have no trouble predicting the winner in a straight-line dash down the runway. This is easy. As they pass 60, the Peugeot's ahead. As they pass 90, the Peugeot's ahead. And at the top end, the Peugeot will nudge 140, while the others won't. Power up and burn. If you want to go faster than a Peugeot 306 GTI, you'll need one of these. But what happens when things get bent and twisty? The Fiat is a surprisingly soft riding car, quite comfortable, and yet it handles really rather well. It's all terribly safe and predictable. Now, the Volkswagen is also a soft rider, almost to the point of being bouncy. It really looks like an accident waiting to happen, especially when that back wheel becomes airborne. All Golf GTIs have always done that, and I'm glad this one still does. It shows they haven't changed the recipe too much. Yes, it may have gone a bit soft round the middle, the gearbox is flobbery, it's swapped its cargo pants for a nice sensible pair of jeans, but it is still a little cracker to drive. However, the Peugeot is in a different league. This may have front-wheel drive, but if you stick it into a corner and lift off, it'll snap into oversteer. Now, some people I know are unnerved by this, but when you're ready for it, when you know it's going to happen, the 306 GTI becomes the best friend you ever had. Oh dear, I appear to have made a bit of a mess of these tyres, but what do you expect? This is the best sports car here. However, if you want a sports car, why don't you buy a Mazda MX-5? You see, the whole point of a hot hatchback is that it has to be practical. And on that front, the Peugeot and the Fiat start to lose some brownie points. They have no back doors. So, if you want to get in the back seat, you have to be Olga Korbut, only more rubbery.
Check this out.
Only the Golf has 5 doors here, and a big boot, and a rear bench that folds down easily. So if you've got children, this is what you buy. But what if you've got a budget? Well, you can have a cheap 125 brake horsepower version, but don't. It's hopeless. Then, in a few months' time, there'll be a luxury V5, and after that, a 4-wheel drive V6. But for now, this one's best. It costs £18,200, but you do get quite a lot of standard equipment. Wonderful Recaro seats, 4 airbags, anti-lock brakes, a trip computer. You can even have air conditioning for less than £400. The Peugeot costs about the same, and there are no obvious reasons why the Fiat should be any less. Sure, the interior's a little plasticky, and it's not the fastest hot hatch out there. But it costs £15,800, £3,000 less than the others. And it'll be cheaper to insure, and it's more economical. For those of a Yorkshire persuasion, this is the one to buy. Crikey, this is complicated. You see, there's a perfectly good reason for buying any one of these cars. The Peugeot is the fastest and the nicest to drive. The Volkswagen is the most practical. And the Fiat is spectacular value for money. And I've got to pick one winner. I'm tempted by the Golf. Volkswagen does better in our JD Power survey than either Fiat or Peugeot, so this should be more reliable than the others. And anyway, it's not like it's an all-new car. The chassis and the engine have come from the Audi A3, a car we've known and liked for a couple of years. I love the simplicity of the interior too. It's so well organised, so beautifully put together, so German. And then you've got the blue dials and the dark wood. I know this car costs an awful lot more than the Fiat, but I think it's just worth it. But is it better than the Peugeot? Well, I guess that depends on whether you want a fast car that happens to be practical, or the Golf, a practical car that happens to be fast. I must be getting old. I'd take the Golf.
Things are rum in the car industry. They've priced their cars too high. They're making too many, and there's no one to buy them. The market's creaking under the weight of unsold motors.
Down there are thousands of brand spanking new orphans that nobody wants. And it's the same on airfields all over the country. Hundreds of thousands of unsold cars. The motor industry is trying to hide the biggest problem they've had for years: overproduction. Which means that dealers are lumbered with stock they can't sell, and they're all but giving new cars away. We rang literally hundreds of garages all over the country to see what sort of discount we could get on the telephone, and were frankly staggered at how the thousands just peeled away.
How about a 1998 S Fiat 20-valve turbo coupe, air, leather, sunroof, just 38 miles on the clock? You save £6 grand. 1998 Nissan Primera 1.6 SLX, 48 miles on the clock. You save £5,000. 98S Fiat Brava 1.6 SX, 14 miles on the clock, £5,000 less than list. A brand new Renault Safran 2.5-litre executive might not be your idea of a luxury car, but at £7,000 less than manufacturer's list, you might think again. And we're not just talking mainstream motors. We found a galaxy of cheap and sexy cars. Some are imports from Ireland and Cyprus, but they're UK spec and have pan-European warranties, so no worries at all. But don't expect discounts from the likes of Mercedes, Audi or Volkswagen. They're pros at managing the ticklish balance of supply and demand. Mind you, having said that, on my travels I came across two S-Reg new-shaped Golfs, a 2-litre Avantgarde convertible, 2,000 quid off, and a 1.8 new-shaped GTI on the S, £1,000 off, for which there's currently a 4-month waiting list. The bottom line is there has never been a better time to buy a new car. I haven't seen discounts like these for years. And the more we keep chipping away at screen prices, the sooner they'll fall in line with the rest of Europe. It is a buyer's Disneyland out there, and you'd be daft not to cash in.
Over the August bank holiday weekend, Britain's most exciting race series came to Brandshatch. And 4 years since I last drove in the championship for Nissan, I was about to rejoin the team for 2 very eventful races. The modern touring car scene brings close racing, glamour, big names, and this year 8 different manufacturers head-to-head for a 13-meeting, 26-race series. But what has made it such a success?
I think it's just the popular appeal of the cars. The customers and that are buying the cars and the race goers can identify with them. The cars in general they're driving to the race circuits or in their driveways at home are the ones that are racing on the track.
It's very cleverly designed to make very close racing. So the rules are really strict. The rules are everything. That makes a good championship or a bad one. That's the real appeal of British touring cars. Very close racing.
Anthony Reid was the man on form arriving at Brands, having won 3 of the last 6 races as he closed in on the championship leader Rickard Rydell. Aided by teammate David Leslie, the pair led the race for the manufacturer's title, and I felt like a nervous novice as I prepared for the feature race qualifying on Sunday morning. Tension in the car and in the pits. But a disappointing result.
I don't believe it. How much quicker is that?
15.15 seconds.
So that's on for a 45.0. So there I'm on for a 45.0 and about 8th on the grid. I go through one corner and cock it up, and I'm 18th on the grid. Oh, I'd be too frustrated.
Modern motorsport is all about high-tech systems with up to 40 sensors recording information that is then poured over on the garage computers. So does the driver matter?
At the end of the day, the driver's still very, very important. The whole package has to be complete, and without the right driver, you're not going to get it.
I really do like trusting my feel of the car, the way it behaves, and the interaction between the driver and the engineer. I still rely on that as the most important factor. But you can find out really quite amazing things by looking at the computer. You know, downforce, understeer, that sort of thing.
Time for another huddle with my engineer, Ronnie.
Well, you go out there and nailing it. And it's worse this afternoon. You're going to do 1 lap. That's it. Nothing else. No second chances, no nothing.
I'll be up. Second position. I'll be up. I'm not going to get depressed down there again. Yeah.
Still ahead of Mansell. It's all right.
Yeah.
Afternoon qualifying for the sprint race was a 1-lap shootout, running in reverse order from the morning session, so the quick guys go last and you slowly watch yourself being bumped backwards.
I'm getting pipped. I thought I'd done a slow time, my head was better, but I got some really good lines. There were places that I know I could have gone quicker if I had another lap, but it's the first time I've done this all year. But I'm just getting knocked down by literally hundredths of a second. Nobody's better than a 45.3, which I've done, I'm now fourth fastest, but by distance.
Time was disallowed, you're third again.
I'm third again. They keep on disallowing people's time. People are lowering their ride-out. Incredibly tight in touring cars. They have this front splitter that must be exactly within millimetres of a minimum ride height. 2 cars so far have come in, ride height's too low, they're at the back of the grid, and I'm up again. But if only I could have been that much faster across the finish line. I've been on pole at the moment.
But I wasn't. So, come Monday morning, I was 12th, 0.4 behind Leslie in 4th, but at least 0.8 ahead of Mansell down in 18th, as an empty Brandshatch prepared for the race day invasion. For the mechanics, it's an early start to practice the compulsory feature race pit stop again and again and again, while the drivers are also about to be very busy as the marshals clear the way for the public walkabout.
You've got to be filming when the army comes. When they open the gates up at Paddock, just like a tidal flow.
And soon, the tide is upon you. Just how many autographs can you do in 1 hour? Ivan Muller, John Cleland, Paul Radicic, and of course, our Nige were all in demand, the former world champion as popular as ever with his adoring public. But all too soon, the track was cleared, the tyres came out of their heaters, and the time for joking was over as I prepared myself for the 25-lap sprint race. Revs rising, heartbeat pounding, ready for the off.
Into second place behind Anthony Reid. Reid first, then Thompson. Side by side, David. Leslie in the white Nissan. And that's right ahead of us now. Leslie on the left, Rydell on the right. We're on board with Alan Menu. A bird's eye view as we go up into Druids.
While Mansell had a front row view of me clashing with his teammate Hoy, sending him into the gravel trap. Up at Druids, Nigel tried to go round the outside of the queue. But when he tried to move back, someone was there. For the third time in 4 races, the Mansell Mondeo ended its race in the barriers. The race restarted behind the safety car, Anthony Reid in the lead and me 11th, trying to find a way past Ivan Muller's Audi, but I was still glued to his bumper when the flag fell, with Anthony the winner and me happy to at least have been on the pace. The team were overjoyed with the result, but not everyone was having such a good day.
Started to come round to get on the line for the bottom end. Someone just smacked me so hard and straight up. And I tell you what, I was airborne like no tomorrow. And it's deliberate, and I don't care who it is, we protest them. We get them excluded, because I tell you, my back and everything.
Meanwhile, it was time for the Nissan boys to do the PR bit, which is as important for the modern touring car driver as wearing a helmet. 300 guests at £100 a head, it's big business. But it does give us a chance to meet our fans. Well, my sons at least. Back in the garage, spurred on by success, the mechanics are still hard at work preparing the cars for the 50-lap feature race. Their jobs never ever seeming to finish until the driver is finally strapped in the car. After the frustrations of qualifying, I now had to line up a lowly 18th and was determined not to get stuck at the back of a queue again. But a bogged down start didn't help. Right in front of me was Paul Radicic in the leading Peugeot. Sorry.
Don Muller's in there somewhere, so it's Clarkson, then it's John Vincliffe, then Gravitt, then Needell. Now we're on board with Paul Radicic. He's bringing up the big sideways movement there from Needell in the Nissan.
I tried to hold on round the outside at Paddock, but ended up being pushed sideways by the other Peugeot of Tim Harvey. The plan wasn't working.
I'm getting assaulted by Peugeot!
Anthony Reid's plan wasn't working either, as he had championship rival Rydell in front of him, with David Leslie back in 6th, but heading for retirement. Pushed back by the Peugeots, I now had Mansell right behind me, and when I took the inside line for Druids, he whacked me up the rear. To gauge the impact, watch my head. With a car that now handled like a crippled crab, I soldiered on towards a lowly 15th place finish, stopping mid-distance to allow the boys in the pits to prove that practice makes perfect, the sort of service that helped them to the team's championship title at the end of the year. Up front, Reid finally found a rather robust route past Rydell and looked to be heading for a notable Brands double, while the team had radioed me to keep an eye on my mirrors in case he might lap me. No mention was made of the fact that Rydell was right behind. 1 lap to go and the race was still on.
Reid in control. We saw him win the first race this afternoon so easily. The only thing that's going to prevent him from doing so will be the traffic ahead. Well, look ahead. On the left is the Nissan of Tiff, Needell, and on the right is the Nissan of Anthony Reid. Now there's Reid, he's through, and there's Rydell, and he's really been slowed up.
It looked bad, but I really was just trying to keep out of the way as Anthony headed for the checkered flag once again. But Rydell would have his revenge, as the stewards deemed that pass a touch too robust and reversed the order of the top 2. Nigel Mansell's race ended in the barriers again, and afterwards he tried, rather forcefully, to blame me for our little incident. The mechanics were still working as the long pack-up began, but it's a lot easier after a successful day, even if there is a bit of damage to be fixed when they get home.
Sometimes since we said goodbye.
So, where was I? Oh, yes. So, Nigel said to me, I've forgiven you once, I'm not going to forgive you again. So I said, look, Nigel, it's you that's ruined my race twice. How about you apologising to me? But he said... Next week, Jeremy on Audi's funky new coupe, the TT. How to pay for your shiny new car, and I get dirty in the new Vauxhall Frontera.